Hello, my name is Jon Witt, and this is a handstand prep class. So if you've taken the class before, welcome back. If you've never taken the class before, I'll give you tips in terms of how to build a handstand. So if it's something that you've never done before, there's some really basic things that you can do to help prepare you for that. I mean, I think if one realizes that they want to do it, it's definitely available. There's things that you would have to do, in the extreme case of, say, someone couldn't fully straighten their arms out, you'd have to do it differently. And if it was just general weakness, I would get into practicing more in terms of getting stronger, more like conditioning, and that'll help you. And I do some of that in this class, but you could be a little bit more specific on your own, or say in some classes that you like to take, whether it's mine or someone else's, that should help in getting you to build up a better handstand. So you don't need a lot of equipment. I'm going to use a wall in terms of kicking up. I don't do a ton of that, but and there's some really great stretching that you can do alongside the wall if you've never used the wall before for practice. It's such a great way to really help understand how to line yourself up. So I'm going to start the class just as I am, just standing, but I'm just going to be shifting the weight around from my one foot to the other. So I'm moving my pelvis back and forth. It's transferring the weight. Just a basic warm up in terms of moving the hips. Really simple. Most people can be able to do this, but let's say you can't, right? You can make it really small, and over time it can be bigger. I'm going to go over to one side and I'm tilting my body. So my body's in an upright position. I'm just kind of here and off to the side. So depending on the side bend, this is applied. Sometimes it's not. I'm doing it just as a warm up, but to really understand how your body feels in space today. So I'm moving it over to the left side, and as I'm tilting, I'm moving my left hip to the left and my body's moving to the right. I'm keeping this straight line. Not that you have to, just the more accurate you get with anything that you're doing, I think it helps in learning like a skill like handstand, because you have to understand how your body's sitting in space. So I'm coming back in the middle, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a full rotation with my pelvis. So as I'm moving my pelvis around, forward position is a back bend, a backward position, you're hinging slightly from the hips, and I'm keeping my body again. If you're really stiff, I can move my body in the same angle as my pelvis. I'm going to move it around in the opposite direction. So if you have difficulty forward bending, not that you need a big forward bend, but this hinging from the hips really makes a difference, right? So I'm just coming back in the middle. So just to be a little bit more specific in the hips and adjusting the hips. So I'm just circling my pelvis, and as I'm circling my pelvis, again, it'll help adjust the hips. So I do some lower level squats, I think is a good thing to develop on top of your handstand. So I use that in these classes. So I'm going to circle around in the opposite direction. So when we get into more like lunging or squatting, what I'm using now is subtle, but it makes a difference. It'll help you. So I'm just coming back into the middle. And also I do it in terms of alignment with the pelvis. So my pelvis, I'm an anterior tilt person, so my back kind of arches, right? So when I'm in my handstand, trying to bring my tailbone down and my pubic bone up, and this is what you want to maintain. It's really common in beginning, especially for a male practitioner, they'll lose this. So you can stick the butt out and then bring it down. A couple more times out, bringing it down. Very good for the lower back. Sticking the tailbone out and then bringing it down one last time. So I'm just going to do some general squats, just again to warm up your legs. So I'm up on my toes, I'm lifting my heels. I'm going to slowly lower just a quarter the way, right? This is a good hold. Then I'm going to go to the height of my knees. Then I'm coming down, and then I'm going to sit. If I can, I'm going to sit on my heels. but then I'm going to bring myself up just above my heels, bringing myself back up to the knee level, back up to the quarter level, and then all the way up. I could lower the heels, I could stay upright. I'm going to do a few more of those. So I'm lowering slowly, controlling it. And with anything, you can just use your joints to fold more, but I'm doing it to get your legs to be stronger and to warm you up. So as I'm lowering, I'm sitting, maybe sitting on the heels, right? Knees could be up or down for this. I'm going to lift myself up just a bit, coming up a little bit higher, and then all the way up. And then one more, I'm going to come down, slowly descending. Just kind of see how much weight you have in your toes. You may favor one particular toe more than the other. That affects the way that you walk. So I'm sitting down again, just above or on the heels. So if you didn't have the flexibility to sit this low, over time, most people can develop this. So I'm coming back up to the height of my knees, then back up, and then lowering my heels down. So I'm going to come down onto all fours. As I come down on my hands and my knees, I'm going to have my hands just underneath my shoulders, and then with my hands just underneath my shoulders, I'm going to push through the hands and round my back into a cat stretch. So I'm just kind of, in an extension, and then in extension, I'm lifting my chest. Then you can exhale, you can round your back. As you round your back, you're in more of protraction, right? So protraction will help spread out the shoulders. So one more time, I'm in extension, I'm lifting my chin, I'm lifting my chest, and then I'm pushing through my hands, I'm rounding my back. One more time, I'm going to back bend, I'm going to lift the chin, I'm going to lift the chest, and then I'm going to exhale, I'm going to round the spine. So I'm moving it forward with my hands. I'm going to lift up to plank. I'm, again, fully in protraction. If I want to make it stronger, I'm going to be more on the tops of my feet. Again, as you get more strength in your positions, then you can make them, more difficult to help with your strength levels. So take 3 deep breaths, use your fingertips. Again, try to create that straight line so I'm keeping my ribs in. And then I'm going to tuck the toes and go up into a down dog. So as I pull back, hips are back, I'm pedaling my legs out. So if you need to move, it's good to move. I'm in down dog, I'm moving my inner thighs back, I'm keeping my ribs in. Pretty basic position, but obviously it's an overhead position, so it does help with handstands. So you can come forward and through into an up dog. So lift the thighs, lift the chest, pull back up into a down dog. All right, one more time, come forward, come through. So there's other variations. I use this just to conserve some of your energy in your arms so that when we do get to kick up and stuff like that, you're not, completely tired. So going back up into a down dog, I usually save more, some bent arm strength, towards the end. But if you were a complete beginner, doing push-ups and conditioning work could probably be better because it's going to build a better foundation, right? So just go back up into a down dog, pull the hips back. Think I'm pulling your shoulders forward to create more space. And then come down on the knees. And then when you come down on the knees, I'm going to have my hands turned back towards my knees. So just getting my shoulders to rotate out. And I'm moving the weight around to adjust my hands, to adjust my wrists, right? Using my hands, my fingertips here in this position. So I want tension in any of these loaded positions, which is, loading and stretching out your wrist. So I'm bending my elbows a bit, right? To create more space in the forearm and, obviously throughout the wrist. So turn the hands forward, come back up into plank, really make it strong, and then pull back up into a down dog. And what you're going to do is walk your hands back towards your feet. As you walk your hands back towards your feet, walk forward again, just one more time. This really helps with walking up the wall when your chest is facing the wall. So shift the weight into one hand, left weight's in the left hand so my right hand can lift, and then shifting it to the right and then to the left and then back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into a squat if I can as I'm squatting, it's perfectly okay to have your feet turned out, and it's really good to have your heels up. It's not a squat, it's more of a crouch. They're both really good. So if you're a person that just can't get flat-footed in your squats, don't force them right away. Be patient, work at it, but know that having your heels up is still really, really beneficial for your knees and your hips. So you don't have to jump that step. You could work on just being in a crouch position, which that's what I'm in now. As it gets better or easier, you can have the heels down. So I'm going to walk the hands back forward. As I'm walking forward, I'm going to slowly lowering. And then I'm going to take my arms forward, and I'm going to keep my head down, but my legs are together. And I'm going to work more of just a body line, right? I want to keep my ribs in. So my head is down. So you won't be able to hear me, but you want to keep the body nice and strong and hollowed, just like a hollow body hold. But with this, your obviously chest is to the floor. So my head is down, arms can lift up, and work on keeping your belly from falling to the floor. So it's most likely going to be difficult for most people with their shoulders and their back, so the hands could be wider. You could come down and up. That's another approach. I'm just holding this static position just a few more seconds, and then bringing it down and having the hands a little bit more forward than the shoulders. So have your feet separated if you need to. Curl up into a low cobra. It's just something of a decent height. It doesn't have to be really high, but if you struggle in extension with the arms, right, this is obviously a good thing to work on. So come forward, come down, come up one more time. And if you do want to come up higher, you can certainly come higher. As you practice, you'll see where your back is not flexible, and you also see where it is flexible. So let's say your back typically hurts from back bending. It's going to hurt where it's already flexible because it just continues to bend, right? So you want to get other areas of the spine to extend. So bring yourself forward, bring yourself down. Have your hands just underneath your shoulders. Tuck the toes. Just push into the floor. Feel the shoulders active. Then lift straight up to plank if you can, right? And come down on the knees. And I'm just going to do some scapula push-ups. I'm not going to do a whole lot, but it's a big part of learning a handstand. So like having, shoulders up towards the ears is really what you're trying to do in positions like this, so that as you take the arms up, you're extending, right? You're getting that good lift. And then as you get the good lift in the overhead position, right, it'll help with, supporting your weight as you're overhead. So I'm just here, right, extending the arms up, shoulders up towards the ears, but then I'm going to relax that, and then I'm protracting the shoulders, but scapula elevation is the handstand. So like in plank, shoulders are protracted, but the shoulders are up towards the ears. But with handstand, initially, I find it really helpful in getting someone to learn it for a few seconds, and you can take the arms down. Like you'll feel way more controlled. So some people can kick up and they have a really good line, but they're not really stable. You're always going to be moving, whether you have good strength or alignment, but having the control of it really makes a difference. So I'm going to come down on my hands and knees and do some heel lifts, which really builds up strength in the hands. So let's say you can kick up, but you don't really know how to bring the weight forward and back in your hands. I mean, some of it comes from your shoulders, but a lot of it is really getting the hands to be stronger, and that helps. So I'm just down on my hands, and I'm just going to do a couple protractions. So my hands are turned out for a handstand slightly, and I'm protracting my shoulders, right? Scapula push-up. Then I'm bringing my chest down in between my arms, and then I'm pushing. So when you have that push, you'll feel a lot more strong and you'll feel more stable, and you won't feel like you're just throwing yourself up to be upside down, right? But here's the heel lifts, is that I'm forward with my shoulders and I'm elevating the heels of my hands off the floor. So I'm lifting, slowly lowering. The further back I am with the shoulders, it's easier. And this is, it's okay to start with these, but get your shoulders more over your hands and lift and slowly, slowly lower. One more time, lift up and then slowly lower down. Be on the toes, tuck the toes, sit back towards the heels. So I'm in this position again, this toe stand position. But take the arms into a cactus position and take the arms straight up overhead and try to get the shoulders up towards the ears, right? And that's your handstand. So I'm gonna do, go to the wall, right? Be about 6-8 inches away from the wall if you're a person that's kicking up to the wall. I'm gonna practice kicking up and down just a bit. And just, if you've never done this before, be playful. Don't be like you gotta get it right away. And, but use the wall. I'm not using it because my floor is a little bit slippery. I'm just gonna keep my mat here. But I like to kick up in 3. So you kick down, you kick up, right? You'll get a rhythm to it. And then each time, maybe you can go up a little bit higher. And if you want to obviously hold it, you can hold your handstand today, right? But my hands are as wide as my shoulders. If you take a photo from the front or a video from the front, you can be quite surprised that maybe what you think, how you line up your hands is correct. So it's a good thing to do from time to time. So take it from the front and you'll really see, like, if you need, in some, handstand coaches that I've just, read or studied, is that they do sometimes a really narrowed stance. So wider stances, in my opinion, unless you're really tight in the shoulders, is that would be the only reason you do that. But you want the hands to be as wide as the shoulders, right? So protract the shoulders, and I'm just going to give you something that maybe you can't kick up or maybe you don't want to. This is a very good thing to do, is I'm pushing through the hands, I'm lifting through the hips. I'm in this like pike push-up position, right? And then you could come down and you could do that for repetitions. You do them slow descent, strong, powerful up with the hips. And you could do anywhere from 5 to 10 if you don't want to kick up, right? But when I'm here, I'm going to be working this forward position just to get a sense of where I am in space. And then I'm going to take my leg up, or I'm going to keep it down, but I want my hips to be forward so the weight's in the hands. If the weight is not in the hands, it's very difficult to kick up and balance. I'm not going for balance, I'm just going for some repetition here. So I'm protracting the shoulders, I'm swinging it up and down. And then come down into the crouch position. You can open and close the hands. Or just get used to it. And as you get used to like coming up a little bit higher, maybe again you do get that time that you're in it, right? That you're up in the hold, right? But what I'm going to do is go up with my opposite leg. So weight is forward, then taking that left leg up and down. Right? But just, again, getting familiar in how you distribute the weight, how you bring your weight forward when you get all the way up, right? And this is why I use the wall so much in walking up the wall, is that you can work more on your alignment. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do it a little bit slower. So if, I don't ever really teach the 90-degree angle at the wall, but that's a good thing to learn, right? That's something that maybe you're not comfortable walking to the wall. You could certainly hold the 90-degree, and that could be your practice, right? But I like walking in and out because it's going to make you stronger, significantly stronger than the 90-degree hold. Like, that's a good thing to start with, right? It's like training wheels. But then as you walk to the wall, right, you're going to get much stronger. But work on keeping the ribs in, keeping the pelvis underneath you, These really make a big difference because we're here. Once you get up, then you can self-correct yourself as you're up and as you spend more time in it. I'm gonna do one shoulder opener because if you have a really difficult time walking to the wall, this is a great exercise for that. So I'm at the wall with my hands at the height of my shoulders, right? And then I'm walking back, but I want to keep the body line that we were in when we were on the floor, right? We're keeping the ribs in. That's what you want to keep when you're at the wall here. So just see the hands, turn the index fingers forward, and then be here. It's very easy to just kind of dump, right? So rather than dumping into your chest and your shoulders, hollow out the front of your body, make it a little bit more concave. And the further you bring your feet back, it's not necessarily better, but at some point as it gets easier and you want more stretch or pull into the shoulders, right? You want a greater manipulation, then the feet can be back further, right? But push the hands into the floor, into the wall, just as if you're pushing to the floor. And this is, super, super basic, but then as you're up overhead, it's that much easier to do once we walk to the wall. So I'm going to turn around and walk up the wall. Like I said, don't walk all the way in where you feel trapped. You feel trapped, walk back out. If you're trapped, you could very well hurt yourself. So don't go back too far. Just measure it. And then see as you keep doing this, then you can get closer to the wall. I'm never really super close to the wall. I'm about a hand, probably about 10 inches away from the wall. I've never measured it, but not super, super close to the wall. You don't want your chest at the wall. You want either just your toes and your nose, right? That's the line that I'm keeping. So my hands are down. I'm gonna hold it for about 5-10 breaths, something like that. I'm gonna come back up, but I'm gonna do that a few more times. I usually go in and out with this. You could do that. In and out is good. It generates power, but holding it a little bit longer is it's more difficult in some ways, especially if you don't have the flexibility. You're a person with flexibility, I suggest going in and out more repetitively because you're gonna get stronger that way. So walk the feet, take one foot up, walk it back to the wall or close to the wall. And then again, my toes are at the wall. And then I'm just trying to keep my ribs from touching the wall, right? So take 3 deep breaths. Really push through the hands, right? Shift the weight into one hand. The lighter hand lifts up. You walk out, right? Come down. And say you're like completely gassed, then you only need one, right? But as you get stronger, then you can build up more. Those of you that are more on the 1 or 2 level, like that's all you have, is take breaks in between, 2-3 minute breaks, but then do another rep or 2. And you could start with like 5, try to get to 5, something like that. But then eventually you can get to 10. That's more of where I think is better because you're going to get stronger. But then you can do it for time. Time is really essentially what you want to get to. You want to do more time in the position, right? So I'm going to bring the hands down. I'm going to do it again. So I'm taking one leg up. I'm walking back to the wall. As I'm walking back, again, I'm really strong through the hands. And I'm pushing my shoulders, again, up towards the ears. Keep the ribs in. Push, 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 push. Take 3 more breaths. Ribs in. Shift the weight into one hand. Lift the other hand. Walk it out. Right? Come back down. Squat or crouch. Stretch out your hands if you need to. If you're done with it, you could be in a forward bend. If you really want some extra work, but you don't have the strength to come up, you could do plank for the time that I'm spending and going up. I'm just going to go up one more time. So I'm taking my left leg up, walking back in. Right. And then trying to get a better line in my pelvis. keeping my ribs in. Take 3 deep breaths. Okay, and then bringing it back out and forward and down. And then coming into the squat or the crouch. Right? But that approach, I didn't time it, but it's probably cumulative or close to a minute. But eventually, if you can get to a minute, it's a good benchmark to get. And then over time, you can collectively build up your time in terms of how long you'd spend in it. So just come down on the hands and knees. And as you're in your hands and your knees, have your right hand turned back. And then as you're turning it back, just move the weight around, right? Adjust the hand, the wrist. I'm going to bend the elbow and bringing my body forward and down. So more leverage into the fingers and into the hand. I'm just going to do a few of these. So down and back up, down, back up. And then one more time I'm down, and then I'm just going to hold the bottom of the position, which is the greatest amount of stretch, right? And then back. I'm turning the right hand forward, and I'm going to turn the left hand back. Then I'm sitting back, or I'm bending the elbow. I have to stretch out the hands, the fingers. I'm back up, and I'm coming down. And there could be a rhythm to it, but you want to do it rhythmically when you really start to understand like what's actually happening in the exercise, right? How to manipulate your hands. You just don't want to just move for the sake of moving, right? So come back into a hand position, protract the shoulders, round your back, lift up into a plank, right? Pull the ribs in, make yourself nice and small and strong, and then take it up into a down dog. Go all the way up into a down dog, pull the hips back in space. Again, if you want a back bend, you can come forward and through, you can elevate your upper body, and as you're extending, right, retract the shoulders, so opposite to what you were doing in the handstand. Then pull back up into a down dog, and then you can come back down onto the knees. I'm gonna sit back on my feet. So, and this is nothing against yoga, but with like a vinyasa class and you're doing your handstands in between, it's good, but it's counterproductive to get the handstand. So I would spend at least a couple times a week just dedicating some practice just to handstand. As it gets better and it gets good, right? Of course you could do handstands in vinyasa yoga, and that's what you like to do, but the great thing about yoga is that you're doing all these poses in between, and it's eclectic, and you feel great from it, right? But it almost pushes the goal of getting your handstand. It almost makes it a little bit more difficult because say you work on a handstand later in the class, you're already pretty tired and you don't really have the capacity to do it. So that's why I'm teaching the classes the way I am, so that you can get your handstand. So come up into a down dog, pull back with the hips, and then as you pull back to the hips, I'm going to make my stance a little bit shorter. I'm just going to do some stretching in between. I'm going to reach my right hand across to grab the heel, and then I'm bringing weight into my right foot. But even just like with your handstand right at the wall, trying to keep my ribs in, that's what's exposing my back. It's very good for the wrist. That's another reason why I'm doing it. It's if you can grab the heel. It's not bad if you're grabbing the calf muscle or the thigh, but it's not really giving you the traction in your wrist if you don't grab the foot. And bring the right hand back, and then reach the left hand across and grab the right heel with the left hand. And then I'm pushing back and down with my heel, but it could certainly be up. The higher I lift my heel, the easier it is to grab. The lower it is, the further it is away from me to grab it. And then bringing that hand back. And then walk your feet forward, top of your mat, just walking forward, being a forward fold, piking, right? Lifting the hips. Not so much the hamstrings, right? But I'm trying to get my hip flexors engaged. And that's how you can fold forward more into this position. I'm gonna step my left foot back into a lunge, and then I'm resting my body and my thigh, but just like what I did with the floor, is I'm trying to keep my ribs in, right? Come up into an overhead position. Then in an overhead position, I'm just gonna have my right leg straight and trying to get the tailbone down, right? So these lunges, there is a carryover, but it really helps with general strength and just kicking up. But I'm coming forward, right? And for those of you that don't have a lot of flexibility, lift the heel. And then as I lift the heel, I'm in a deeper lunge. So it could be high up on the toes or just partially up. Higher is going to add more element of strength, but then I'm coming back up. I'm going to do this a few more times. So I'm coming forward, coming down, right? Deep lunge. Again, trying to keep the tailbone down, pressing back up. One more time, I'm coming forward, coming down, keeping the ribs in. I could open and close the hands, pressing myself back up, and then bringing my arms down. So I'm going to move my left foot in a bit closer, and I'm going to do a bit of like a warrior 3, but I'm coming forward, but I'm coming down just to stretch out more of the back of the leg. I could bring the hands down and elevate the leg, right? So push strong through the right foot, bringing the left foot in, coming back into a squat or a crouch. So again, elevate the heels if you're concerned with your back, right? In yoga, right, really common, a lot of lower back stuff. So get into the practice of not forward bending as much and doing more neutral spine is better. So lower the heels, step the right foot back, and then lift yourself up on top of your thigh, but rest your belly on your thigh, but be active. Like in handstands, eventually you can bring knees into chest, which is really great. It's very difficult to do. It's really kind of the same thing as I'm pulling my leg into my chest, but I'm keeping my belly, I'm keeping my ribs in, and then I'm coming up. And then as I'm coming up, I'm going to have my left leg straight. So just to get the tailbone further underneath, for me, I find it easier to do in a straight leg position. So I'm keeping that. Then I'm taking the arms up. Then I'm elevating the heel, right, and I'm coming forward, right, into a deeper lunge. It's good if you can keep the foot flat, right? But not everybody can, and that's why I'm doing it this way. So push strong through the left foot. Keep the pubic bone lifting and the tailbone dropping, coming down. One more time, coming up, and then coming down. Last time. Again, pubic bone's up, tailbone's down, and then back up. And you can bring the arms down. I'm going to come forward where I'm resting. Try to keep your foot straight. Super common in yoga is people turn the feet out. Not that it's wrong, but it really is so much easier to balance when your foot's crooked. So get the foot to be more straight. Then when you come forward and you come down, right? You want it to be difficult. That's what people want, a longer hold. They want better looking stuff, right? But you want it to be difficult so that it's actually improving your practice, right? To get stronger, you have to condition yourself to get stronger. Same thing with flexibility or mobility, right? You have to work at it. And bringing the right foot next to the left, and I'm going to be in a rounded position, right? Just in a forward bend. I'm going to roll myself up to standing. As I'm up, again, I'm going to bring the tailbone down, the pubic bone up. I'm going to take the arm straight up, and I'm just assimilating the handstand. I'm going to come up on my toes, lifting my heels, and just see what your tendency is. Do your hips go too far forward? Do you use your lower back too much? And then lower your heels. You can lower your arms. I'm going to do that stretch one more time at the wall. My hands are at the height of my shoulders, my chest. I step back. And how much you should step back is really how much leverage you need. So if you already feel a good stretch and you're not walking the feet back very far, that's good. But then as it gets easier, you know, say you do need more stretching in the chest and the shoulder, well, then you can walk back further. So my hands are at the wall, my hands are turned out slightly. I'm walking back. Again, just dump to see the difference, right? Dump into your chest, your shoulders, but then round a little bit through the upper back and keep the ribs in. And this, you know, once you get this line, it just makes it so much easier to balance in, right? But if you're, and it's also so much better for your wrist. You know, if you don't have this alignment, usually something has to compensate to be in a balanced position in handstand. So take a couple deep breaths, then walk the feet forward, and you can move your hands back beside you. So I'm going to do the wall walks again, but I'm going to do them a little bit quicker. Like I said, some ways it's easier and some ways it's more difficult. It really depends on the person. So if you couldn't do that again, you know, go back into the Pike Lifts. So if I'm doing Pike Lifts, I'm pressing through the hands and I'm lifting the hips just for a few seconds, and I'm slowly coming down. And this is in some ways a little bit more difficult than crow. Like crow is really about counterbalance, but with this, you know, you because nothing's supporting you, you have to use more strength, and that's why I like those. But again, I'm going to walk up the wall with my feet. I'm going to walk my hands, you know, to the wall. I'm going to do more of a repetitive motion. So it doesn't have to be really fast, but I'm going to do them at a certain speed. If you find it too fast, just skip out a round, but then join me in the next round. Like do 1, 3, and 5, something like that. Don't do every round, right? So turn the hands out, protract your shoulders, lift one leg up. As you lift it up, walk the feet back or walk the feet up the wall. Walk the hands back to the wall. Just hold for a few seconds, ribs in, and move the weight to one side. Walk it back out, right? And you're down, right? Skip a rep or come back up again. So come up. Keep the ribs in. Push. Bring it back out. All right, and again, you can skip a rep or you can come back up. So lift your legs up, lift one leg up. Walk it back out. Take a breath. Last time, go up. Last time, going up the wall with your feet. And then walk it back out. Shift the weight to one hand, walking your hands back out, and then you can walk or come forward into a forward fold. Just take the hands off to one side. So just bring your hands to one side. As your hands are to one side, you can round your back or keep your back straight. So again, really common why forward bending's changed over the years is because so many people have had back pain. But if you're not really spending time in rounding your spine, that can be problematic in a completely different way. So I think rounding your back, with the exception of osteopenia and osteoporosis, is very good for the spine, and you should, use it more, in little bits, and then eventually you can start to do, poses like plow again. But if you're, already, compromised in your spine, then I would stick to more neutral spine, more upright positions. So I'm here and I'm rounding my back. So my back is rounded, purposely rounding the spine. And again, you'll never see pictures or videos of this, but it's so good for the back. Right? Take the hands to the opposite side. You can extend, right? But if you're always in extension, you're really doing the pose always the same way, and you could certainly hurt yourself by doing it always the same way. So I'm going to round my back. Right, the same thing, if I always rounded my back, I could very well overwear that, but it's very rare that this is being taught or practiced. In classic positions, the back is rounded. Bring it back into the middle, and then as you bring it back in the middle, I'm going to slowly roll myself up to standing, back up into a standing position. Just take a couple deep breaths. I'm going to just do a basic side bend just to counter that. Just leaning to the left. Let the head rest to the left shoulder. Let the arms relax. Bring yourself up and then side bend to the right. And then it's the whole left side that you're stretching out. You're exposing. And lift up more through the rib cage if you need more of a lift. And then bringing yourself back up into a standing position. It's kind of been something that I've been using quite a bit in the class is, measuring or taking the legs into a wide position. And as your Cossack stretch or your warrior, your lunges all get better, it's much easier, in my opinion, to kick up with your legs wide. I haven't taught that in this class, but as your wide positions get easier, that's such a great way to kick up, and then eventually can lead to press ups. So take your feet out, into a wide stance, turn your feet out, and like I did earlier in the lunges, feel free on the side that you're going to that the knee is bent, feel free to have that heel up, have it up initially. It's way more difficult to hold. It's easier if you have the flexibility. So you could always have the heel up. It's just, like I said, it's more inefficient. So I'm sitting here. I'm going to keep my heel down, but you could certainly have it up. Then I'm going to move the weight into the left side. So initially when you do this, just kind of see how much range you have on the day. You don't have to get incredibly low to benefit from it. Bringing yourself back over the right side again. And then maybe you are sitting a bit lower into the position, right? And then as you're here, what leg needs more leverage is really, depending on the person. And maybe you need weight in both of the legs at different times. Like when I'm leaning to my right, it's definitely more leverage for my right leg. When I'm leaning to my left, it's more leverage for my left. So I'm going to go over to the left side, same thing, just kind of playing it out. And I've said this before in classes, is that one side is definitely going to need more practice. So you could definitely spend more work on that, right? Go back over to the right. And when you go back to the right, I'm going to turn my left foot up. Not that this is the best way to do it, but that it's just different. And it's more hamstring, more of the posterior as far as what's being exposed in this position. And then as you're here, right, I'm working on getting my legs further apart. I'm also working on lifting my leg, the leg that's straight, towards my left shoulder. It's not coming up, but there's an action there. So push strong through the right foot, take it over to the left. As you take it over to the left, again, you could be supported with a wall in front of you, behind you. Using a weight is really good. I just start with a lighter weight. The more flexible you are, the less weight you need. I hear of some people, and they're very flexible. They really don't need the weight that they're using. It's just a number. So whatever the weight is, if it's giving you the adjustment that you need, or it's giving you the balance, because sometimes it's a counterbalance, that's what I would base it on. Not like, oh, I did Cossacks with a 70-pound kettlebell or whatever. You certainly can, right? But you'd want to build up. I wouldn't obviously start with that. But you could sit lower and lower into the hips. Legs are active, and push through the left foot, and you can bring yourself up into a standing position. So just in a standing position, I'm going to work back into a squat, but take the feet a little bit wider than the shoulders. You can squat down, and should be, over time, it should get easier and easier. And there will be
more difficult times or days, that you're doing stuff like this. I'm going to stretch out a little bit more of the feet. So if, you sent me a video and I saw that your Cossack was difficult, I'd definitely give you some exercises for your feet, because that's a big part of all these lower positions. So what you'll do is you're going to sit. I'm going to have my back to you so that you can see my feet. But with these, you may want to double up your mat, like flip it over, or even be on a really soft surface when you do these, like grass or a fluffy carpet. All these are really good, especially the tighter you are. You want a softer surface, the tighter you are. As your body gets healthier and it's more pliable, harder surfaces are really great. It's just, I wouldn't start with a really hard surface, right? So I'm sitting on my feet. As I'm sitting on my feet, right, these, when I work with someone that's really tight, I don't have them hold poses really long. I'll actually do the opposite. But then we'll spend more time in it. It's more frequency rather than just sheer length or volume. But I'm going to bring weight into my right hand and sit off of my feet. So it's almost like I have one leg, right? Like a mermaid. And then I'm pushing through the right hand. I'm going to sit back on the feet again. And again, I'm just so that you can see me better, is I'm off my mat. You should be on your mat. Bring your left hand to your left and then sit off to the left side. And like I said, it's really, really great for your feet. But in addition, it's really great for manipulating the outsides of your hips, like into your QL. Like this whole area can be really tight. I work with an older population, and it's hard for them to move their pelvis side to side. It's hard to do like rotations. But I'm going to take it up again. I'm going to go over to the right again. And as they get easier, you could do it without your hands. Not that you have to do that, but it takes a different motor skill. It takes different type of strength. So if I shift, I'm back up onto my feet, and then I'm shifting over. Right? Not that this is, again, better. It's just over time, you can develop these things as well, which is nice. So take 3 deep breaths. Take note of which side you really don't like to sit on. Take note of which side actually needs a higher elevation, like one hip might need to be higher. Right? But I'm going to take my legs forward, and as my legs are forward, my hands are back here. I'm just going to scrunch up the toes and fan them out. Scrunching them up enough where they don't cramp, but then fanning them out. One more time, I'm going to scrunch them up, and then I'm going to fan them out. I'm going to bend my knees, and then as I bend my knees, I'm going to retract my shoulders, lift my hips, move the weight around, right, hand to hand, keep the hips high. If the hips are low, you'll notice that it's more shoulder, right? Not that it's wrong or incorrect, but when the hips are up, it's more upper back, and it's usually thoracic is what's really tight for people in terms of the overhead positions. But I'm going to move the weight forward while keeping my hips up and then back. Just a couple more times. Forward, back, and then one more time forward, keeping the hips up and then back. But I'm going to do one last stretch for your shoulders. So bring your hips down. If you already feel a decent amount of stretch here, just stay here. But what you could do is you can move your feet forward and then move your hips forward, and your hips don't have to be as far forward as I am. And you never really know if it's too much. So if you're like, I think this might be too much, just move your hips back a little bit, right? I think it's better to be more on the side of conservative than just, because I wish it was just that simple as go as far as you can, and then you sustain that tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. Like I'll go really, really far into a position, and I'll see results with it, like minimal results, like later in the week or the following week. But where I'll really see the results is like a few months or like later in the year, because it takes that long for the body to to really understand, your nervous system, to understand the positions. So just go back to bending the knees, right? Retract the shoulders. I'm just going to take it up one more time, and you can see a difference in the shoulders, right? And then you can slowly bring the hips down, and you can shake it out. If you had time, you could rest. I don't teach a relaxation in this class, but you certainly should take one. If you really do hard training, have days that you meditate, have days that you do like soft work, right? So important. And for those of you that do, more softer practices, I think it's so important to have the other side of the coin, like be really physical. I'm trying to encourage more people to take this class just so that they can still use their bodies, right? If you're not using it, you're not really stressing it, you're slowly losing it. And I really think that you can maintain most of it to a certain age. So I hope the class helped you. Have a wonderful weekend. If I don't see you, I have a class tomorrow, a live class, and that's from 9 to 10 Eastern. I have a class Sunday, and that's 9:30 to 10:30 Eastern. And they're both Hatha classes, like more base level classes. The class on Sunday, Zoom, you would register through my website. It's jonwittyoga.com. You can always, again, message me if you have any questions. Have a beautiful weekend. Hope to have you in class soon. Take care.